Hello and welcome to another episode of The Mindset Forge, a podcast where we discuss the best ideas of humanity, the most useful practices, and the most skillful means for developing a more well-adjusted and adaptive mindset. To do this, I will be discussing latest science, ancient philosophy that has stood the test of time, as well as the thoughts and actions of important historical paragons. The goal is to give you tools and practices and ideas for your self-improvement, with the goal of moving ahead the entire humanity. Our discussion will focus on the ideas and practices with the most cash value, so practices that are easy to take up but hold enormous potential. And since most of these practices have to do with changing your thinking and attitudes, they are completely free. Call me Laurent Lohel, I will be your host, and welcome aboard. Also, make sure to like Mindset Forge on Spotify and YouTube, as well as check out our Discord server, where you can find links to my book, which you can buy on Amazon to support my another side enterprise of being a fiction author. Without further ado, let's get to the episode. Mindset Forge, episode 21. Reality, not what meets the eye. Things are not what they seem, nor are they otherwise. The Buddha in Lankavatara Sutra. Welcome back, dear listeners, to yet another episode of the Mindset Forge. Today we are embarking on a journey that will take us beyond the familiar and into the realm of the extraordinary. We will explore the very fabric of reality, questioning our perceptions and seek to unmask the illusions that we often mistake for the truth. This episode is all about enhancing mental flexibility and expanding our minds in the most profound way. You see, what we perceive isn't always the real reality. Our understanding of the world is shaped by our senses and thoughts, and they paint the picture that we accept as our reality. However, this reality often fails to account for the transient and composite nature of the universe. It tends to solidify impermanence, amplifying our attachments and, as a result, our suffering. But there's good news. Both modern science and ancient wisdom traditions have offered us alternative views of reality, views that are often more accurate and certainly more liberating than our conventional perspective. Whether it's the mind-bending theories of quantum physics or the age-old wisdom of the Buddha, they converge on one key point. The reality we perceive is not as solid or as unchanging as it seems. In this episode, we will navigate the rich landscapes of simulation theory, holographic universe theory, the world as a dream from Buddhism, and much more. We will dance with Nietzsche's philosophy of life as a grand narrative and delve into the solitary world of solipsism. We will also touch upon the profound implications of the observer effect in quantum physics and the mystical views of reality. So why are we discussing this? Because, good listener, understanding these perspectives can loosen the grip of rigid thinking patterns. It can make us more adaptable, less attached to our viewpoints, and thus less likely to suffer. In the process, it provides us a larger canvas to paint our life experiences on. It offers us new ways to navigate challenges, new ways to relate to ourselves and others, and ultimately new ways to experience the richness of life. New viewpoints help us assume a more flexible mindset when it comes to viewing the world itself. Also, we will learn about the latest scientific theories as well, and it helps to stay up to date. By the end of this episode, I hope that your eyes will be opened to a fresh panorama of reality. You will see how the wisdom of the ancients can intersect with the discoveries of modern science to bring about a transformative shift in your perception. This is an episode that promises not just knowledge, but a profound shift in perspective, a shift that can make all the difference. Let's start with the view most of us are familiar with, the perspective that our senses provide us direct access to the world as it is. It's a simple, intuitive belief, one that we've held since our earliest days. What we see, hear, touch and taste and smell is a faithful representation of the world outside. But let's take a closer look at this belief. When we perceive a red apple, for instance, we tend to think that the apple is red, but that's not entirely accurate. In fact, the apple absorbs all colors of the light except red, which it reflects. Our eyes pick up this reflected light and our brain interprets it as red. So, in essence, the redness isn't in the apple, it's in our perception of the apple. Also, who's to say that the specific wavelength of light that hits our retinas really is that color? Is it any color? The color red is just the way our brain interprets the signal it receives from the retina when it comes to contact with that wavelength of light. If there is life on other planets, life with eyes and brains that interpret the signals, the experience of that specific wavelength of light might be something completely different, as evolution has started from different building blocks and followed its own trajectories. The same goes for all our senses. They don't merely passively receive information from the world, they actively interpret and construct reality. Scientists have found that our brains predict what we expect to see and then use the incoming sensory information to either confirm or adjust these predictions. This process is so seamless and automatic that we usually aren't aware of it. Now, why is this important? Because this normal view, this belief in the accuracy and objectivity of our senses can often lead us to unnecessary suffering. We assign a permanence, a solidity to the world which it simply doesn't possess. We grasp at things as if they have inherent existence independent of our perception. This clinging to or rejection of the things we perceive creates a sense of attachment or aversion. For instance, we may see a certain object, let's say a luxury car, and our mind assigns it a value, a desirability. We see the car as inherently desirable object and may feel a sense of lack or unhappiness because we don't have it. But in reality, the car is just a collection of parts and its desirability is a projection of our mind. Similarly, we may encounter a situation we perceive as threatening or unfavorable. We react with fear or anger, often out of proportion to the actual threat, because we are reacting to our perception of the situation, not the situation itself. Understanding that our perceptions are not direct reflections of the world, but constructions of our brain can help us recognize these patterns. We can start to see that the value, the meaning, the desirability we often assign to objects or situations are not inherent in them, but are projections of our mind. This understanding can reduce our attachment and aversion, and thus our suffering. In this light, questioning our normal view of reality isn't just a philosophical exercise. It's a powerful tool for transforming our relationship with the world and reducing our suffering. Let's dive into the world of physics and uncover two rather mind-bending theories about the nature of our universe: the simulation hypothesis and the holographic principle. First up is the simulation hypothesis, popularized by tech luminaries like Elon Musk. This theory proposes that the universe we experience could be a sophisticated computer simulation. sort of like an ultra-advanced virtual reality. If we think of the most realistic video games we have today and imagine the trajectory of technological advancement continuing, it's not unthinkable that future civilizations could simulate entire universes with sentient beings within them. What's fascinating about this perspective is that it throws the nature of reality into question. If we are in a simulation, everything we experience, every sight, sound, taste, smell and touch, would be the result of complex code processed by an incredibly powerful computer. In this context, the world wouldn't be an independent, objective reality, but rather a subjective experience created by this simulation. Next, let's delve into the holographic principle. This theory emerges from the world of theoretical physics and suggests that our three-dimensional universe might actually be a projection of information stored on a two-dimensional surface. Just like a hologram, a three-dimensional reality could be an intricate illusion created by underlying two-dimensional information. This principle comes from attempts to reconcile quantum mechanics, which governs the very small, and general relativity, which describes the very large. Some physicists suggest that a unified theory could be achieved by treating the universe as a giant hologram. What do these theories mean in practicality? Well, if these hypotheses are correct, our everyday assumption that the world is a fixed, three-dimensional physical reality is an oversimplification. It implies that the world is far more complex, flexible and illusory than we usually think. Our perception of an objective, stable reality could be seen as a kind of user interface designed by evolution or the parameters of the simulation to help us navigate this incredibly complex information. These ideas challenge our ordinary perception of reality, inviting us to consider that the world could be far different from how we usually conceive of it. By expanding our mindset to encompass these possibilities, we may be more open to examining our experiences from fresh angles, less bound by our usual assumptions. It's important to note, though, that these are theories, not established facts. They represent some of the frontiers of our current understanding, the places where we are pushing the boundaries of what we know. As such, they should be taken as provocative ideas to broaden our thinking rather than definitive descriptions of reality at this point. Now let's shift our focus from the grand scale of the universe to the tiny, quizzical world of quantum mechanics. This branch of physics has left scientists scratching their heads for a century with its seemingly impossible to grasp ideas. One such concept is the observer effect, which is most famously illustrated by the double-slit experiment. The double-slit experiment is a staple in quantum physics. When scientists fire particles, such as electrons, one at a time towards a barrier with two slits, they observe something astonishing. Instead of behaving like tiny bullets and going through one slit or the other, the particles act like waves and appear to go through both slits at once, creating an interference pattern on the detector screen behind the barrier. The truly mind-boggling part, though, is that when we try to measure which slit the particle actually goes through, the interference pattern disappears and the particle behaves as if it goes through one slit or the other. In other words, the mere act of observation seems to collapse the wave-like behavior into particle-like behavior. This is known as the observer effect. What does this mean in practicality? First and foremost, the observer effect tells us that the world at the quantum level behaves in ways that are fundamentally different from our everyday experience. The particles that make up our world do not have definite properties until they are measured or observed. which can be quite counterintuitive. This raises a profound question: if the properties of particles are not fixed until they are observed, does the same hold true for larger systems, even the entire universe? Are we, as conscious beings, playing a role in creating the reality we experience? Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest this could be the case. They propose that the act of observation or measurement isn't just passively recording what's out there, but is actively participating in the creation of what's observed. However, this interpretation is controversial and many physicists don't subscribe to it. And even if it were true, it wouldn't mean we can simply think things into existence, as some proponents of pseudoscience claim. The observation in the observer effect refers to a physical interaction, like a photon of light bouncing off an electron, not the human mind looking at something. Despite these caveats, the observer effect still shakes our usual understanding of reality. It suggests that the world isn't just sitting out there, independent and unchanging, waiting for us to observe it. Instead, the nature of reality is tied up with the process of observation, of interaction, in a way that we don't fully understand. This concept invites us to consider the world not as a static stage, but as an ongoing participatory process to which we are intimately linked. It's an idea that can be found not just in the frontiers of physics, but also in ancient philosophical and spiritual traditions. It suggests that our perception of the world as a separate, objective and fixed might be an oversimplification, and that the true nature of reality might be far more interconnected, fluid, and mysterious than we usually think. Fascinating, isn't it? The quantum view of reality certainly jolts us out of our typical day-to-day assumptions about the nature of existence, but it also gives rise to the set of philosophical ideas and theories that take these concepts to a whole new level. One such concept is solipsism, which brings an entirely unique and potentially shocking perspective to the table. Solipsism is a philosophical perspective that asserts that nothing can be known beyond one's mind. In other words, it proposes that a person can only be sure of their own existence and experiences and nothing else. Everything else, other people, the physical universe, time and space, are all constructs of one's own consciousness. This notion, though seemingly far-fetched, emerges from the fact that everything we know or experience is filtered through and ultimately shaped by our minds. For instance, you perceive the world through your senses, which send signals to your brain. The brain then interprets these signals to create your experience of reality. But who's to say this experience accurately represents what's out there? After all, our senses are not perfect. They can be deceived and they only capture a tiny slice of the physical world. In a sense, the reality we experience is more of a simulation created by our brains than an accurate depiction of the world as it truly is. This is where solipsism takes a radical leap. It proposes that perhaps this simulation is all there is, that there isn't any out there beyond our minds. Everything that we perceive as external to us, other people, the physical world, even the passage of time, might be nothing more than a creation of our minds. Now, we should note that solipsism isn't a widely accepted or embraced view. It's seen as a philosophical curiosity, a thought experiment rather than a serious theory of reality. It's also quite isolating. If taken to its extreme, solipsism implies a profound loneliness, as it posits that we are alone in our own mental universe. However, solipsism does serve to highlight the pivotal role our minds play in shaping our experiences and perceptions. It drives home the point that the world as we know it is not a one-to-one match with the world as it exists independent of us. Whether we create our own reality as solipsism suggests or merely interpret it, the fact remains that our minds are the architects of our experience. Let's then shift our focus towards the New Age view, which is indeed a fascinating blend of spiritual and philosophical perspectives, often incorporating concepts from both Eastern and Western traditions, as well as more modern understandings of the universe from fields such as quantum physics. A key principle in many New Age philosophies is the belief that our thoughts and consciousness have the power to directly influence or even create our reality. This is often referred to as the law of attraction, and you might have come across it in books like The Secret or in various self-help or personal growth teachings. According to this philosophy, by focusing our thoughts and intentions, we can attract experiences, circumstances, and even material possessions into our lives. We can shape our own realities through the power of belief and expectation. The fundamental principle behind this is vibrational energy. Every thought or emotion we experience has its own vibrational frequency, and by aligning our personal frequency with the frequency of what we desire, we can draw it towards us. Now, this view has been the subject of much debate and scrutiny, and it's worth noting that there isn't scientific consensus behind these concepts. Critics often point out that this perspective can lead to victim blaming or overly simplistic views of complex societal issues. For instance, it's a drastic oversimplification to suggest that individuals living in poverty simply need to think positively to change their circumstances, for example by winning the lottery. Yet, the core idea, the concept of shaping our realities with our thoughts and intentions, can be empowering. This is not to deny the existence of external realities or systematic issues that influence our lives, but rather to highlight the role that our mindset and perspective can play in how we experience and navigate the world. Buddhism offers an insightful perspective on the nature of reality that aligns well with the direction of our discussion. In Buddhism, the doctrine of emptiness, or shunyata, proposes that all phenomena are devoid of inherent existence. Rather than being fixed, separate entities, things are seen as interdependent and ever-changing. This is often misunderstood to mean that nothing exists, but it's more accurate to say that things do not exist as we perceive them in our ordinary dualistic mindset. What do we mean by dualistic mindset? It's the ordinary view where we perceive and categorize everything in binary terms: good or bad, right or wrong, self and other. This is contrasted with the non-dualistic view where these binary distinctions are transcended. Moreover, Buddhism recognizes that our minds shape our realities. Each individual's perception of the world are influenced by their own thoughts, emotions, and experiences. In other words, while there is an underlying reality or suchness, tathata in Sanskrit, we can only perceive it through the filter of our minds. This leads to a variety of subjective experiences akin to the parable of blind men describing an elephant based on the path they are touching. In this way, Buddhism describes the world as like an illusion, not because it does not exist, but because our perceptions of it are not its true nature. The world we experience is like a mirror reflection or the moon reflected on the lake's surface. Real in one sense, but not representing the ultimate reality. This perspective encourages us to understand that our perceptions, thoughts, and emotions don't provide a perfect representation of reality. It motivates us to examine and question our views and beliefs continually, fostering mental flexibility and openness. Now let's transition to another worldview, one that considers life as an art form or a heroic journey, drawing from the philosophical writings of Friedrich Nietzsche. This perspective can provide us with a unique lens to view our individual lives and experiences. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, held the view that life could be interpreted and experienced as an aesthetic phenomenon akin to a work of art. For Nietzsche, art was highly important, and he famously stated, "Without music, life would be a mistake." While we are not literally suggesting that life is a piece of art, this perspective offers a shift in how we perceive our personal experiences. Nietzsche encouraged individuals to see their lives as their own artwork, a canvas on which they could express their personal narrative and growth. This concept aligns with the core philosophy of Nietzsche's idea of becoming who you are, wherein the process of self-realization is likened to an artist creating their masterpiece. When applying this perspective to our daily lives, we can frame even our most challenging experiences as integral parts of our life's grand narrative, giving them purpose and meaning. We can transform our tragedies into something meaningful, into pivotal moments in our personal hero's journey. This shift in perspective doesn't deny the harshness of reality, nor does it ask us to sugarcoat our experiences. Rather, it encourages us to embrace all aspects of our lives, the ups and downs, the joys and the pains, and weave them into our personal tapestry of growth and self-realization. This way of seeing the world may not fit everyone, and it doesn't claim to be the ultimate truth about reality, but it offers an empowering lens through which to view our lives. By seeing ourselves as the artist of our lives, we can create meaning and purpose, turning our experiences into a grand narrative that inspires growth and transformation. The power of perception and how it influences our experience of the world is a fascinating topic that has been extensively studied within the fields of psychology and neuroscience. It's intriguing how these scientific perspectives lend credence to many of the philosophical and spiritual viewpoints we've been exploring in this episode. The way we perceive the world is greatly influenced by our internal state. When we are feeling low, the world appears darker, hills seem steeper, distances seem longer, and tasks feel more burdensome. Also, due to mood-congruent memory bias, we recall information that is consistent with our current mood. So, according to our memory, our lives and the world around us has always been like it seems to us in that moment. And as our emotions change moment by moment, our memories also change the history of the world, at least from a personal perspective. It's not that the external world has changed, but rather our perception of it is influenced by our internal state, causing us to interpret the world in a way that is in line with how we are feeling. The placebo and nocebo effects offer additional powerful examples of the mind's influence on our experiences. In medical studies, people often report relief from symptoms or improvement in their condition simply because they believe they are receiving an effective treatment even when they are only given a sugar pill. Conversely, if they believe that a medication will have adverse effects, they will start experiencing these negative effects even when the medication is harmless. The way we perceive our world is very much like a simulation constructed by our brain based on the inputs it receives. The light that enters our eyes is simply electromagnetic radiation of various wavelengths. However, our brain interprets these different wavelengths as different colors. Similarly, the sensations we perceive as smell, taste, touch and sound are all interpretations made by our brain based on the signals it receives from our sensory organs. In other words, our brain constructs a model or simulation of the world around us, which we then perceive as reality. For example, you are currently hearing the words I speak and think that you are hearing a sound. But as we know, sound is just a vibration of a medium, air in this case. When this vibration hits your eardrums, the signal travels to the brain, which creates the experience of sound. When the medium that vibrates is the ground under your feet, you simply get the feeling of vibration through the feeling of touch. Returning to the vibration hitting your eardrums, you don't really even have to focus to turn these vibrations, which the brain interprets as sounds, into words with specific meanings. Ultimately, none of these words have inherent meaning, yet your brain attaches it to them so fast you don't even notice it. And if this is the case with sound, just imagine all the things we take for granted, but that are not ultimately so. This doesn't mean that the external world doesn't exist, but rather that our perception of it is a construction, an interpretation based on the limited sensory data we receive. We each live within our own subjective simulation of the world, co-creating our reality based on our beliefs, our mood, and our past experiences. Understanding that our experience of the world is essentially a mental construction is a powerful one. It opens up the possibility that by changing our beliefs, our attitude, and our mental state, we can change our experience of the world. This is a powerful tool for self-improvement and personal transformation. Let's update our knowledge on latest theoretical physics. Quantum field theory, a fundamental theory in quantum mechanics, offers an intriguing perspective that ties in nicely with the themes of connectedness found in spiritual teachings. At the risk of oversimplifying, this theory posits that all particles, the very building blocks of matter, are essentially excitations or vibrations in underlying fields that permeate the universe. These quantum fields exist everywhere, and all particles, including the ones that make up you, me, and everything around us, arise from these fields. What's fascinating about this view is that it fundamentally challenges the way we usually perceive the world. We often see ourselves and other things in the world as separate entities. We see boundaries where we distinguish me from not me. But if quantum field theory is correct, then these boundaries are more conceptual than real. At a very deep level, we are all interconnected. We are all made up of vibrations in the same universal field. This view echoes the ancient wisdom of the Tao Te Ching and Buddhist teachings, which instruct us to transcend our limited sense of self, to realize that we are an inseparable part of the universe. Like waves in the ocean, each of us is a unique expression of the underlying water. The wave may have a distinct form, but it is not separate from the ocean. Similarly, we may have individual bodies and minds, but we are all manifestations of the same underlying reality. This shift in perspective can be profound. It invites us to see ourselves and others not as separate entities competing for resources, but as interconnected parts of a greater whole. This not only fosters a sense of unity and compassion, but also diminishes the feelings of isolation and separateness that are often at the root of much suffering. Well, good listener, we have embarked on a fascinating journey today through various perspectives on reality, from scientific theories to spiritual teachings, from everyday perceptions to transformative insights. We have talked about how our brains create a simulation of the world, one that is shaped not just by the information coming in through our senses, but also by our thoughts, feelings, and expectations. We have explored cutting-edge scientific theories like quantum field theory and the holographic principle, theories that offer startlingly new ways of envisioning the world. We have also delved into ancient wisdom from Buddhism and Taoism, finding uncanny resonance between their teachings and modern scientific views. We have talked about Nietzsche's idea of life as a grand play where we are all the actors making our lives a work of art. All of these viewpoints show us that reality is far more malleable and mysterious than we often take it to be, and each of these perspectives offers us a different way of engaging with life, a different way of interpreting our experiences, and a different way of understanding our place in the universe. By exploring these different perspectives, we expand our mental flexibility. We gain the ability to shift our viewpoints, to see situations from new angles, and to engage with life in more creative and empowering ways. We can learn to see past the illusions that often cause suffering and embrace a more nuanced and liberating understanding of reality. And so, as we come to the end of this episode, I hope you carry these perspectives with you. Let them inspire you, challenge you, and transform you. Let them open your eyes to the wondrous complexity and interconnectedness of the world, and let them guide you on a path towards a more mindful and fulfilling life. Thank you, good listener, for joining me on this exploration. It's been a real mind bender, but as we have seen today, a flexible mind is a powerful tool. So, until our next journey into the heart of the Mindset Forge, remember, it's all in your mind after all. Stay flexible, stay curious, and keep forging ahead. Goodbye for now. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Mindset Forge. I hope you found it informative and the lessons and practices spoken in it relevant to your situation. I also hope you found it as entertaining to listen as I found making it to be. If you found it beneficial, be sure to follow Mindset Forge on Spotify as well as on YouTube, where you can also give us a thumbs up. Also, make sure to check out our Discord server for further discussion, where you can contact me directly. Links in description and channel information. There you can also find the link to my book, which I have self-published on Amazon, called Death Drive. If speculative dystopian near-future sci-fi sounds like a cup of tea, getting the book is a great way to support my work as an author. So have a nice day and memento cerebrum formare.